You up for listening to a bit of music?
Yeah. What you got?
Unusual choice.
You try doing that for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That brought it alive. I remember him doing that.
Yeah.
So well, I'll do this.
And did that just happen in the studio, or this is when you played live? In the studio.
What?
Close your eyes and I'll miss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll ride home every day, and I'll send all my loving to you.
It's a difficult part.
Yeah. And nobody would play it. It's just an unusual musical choice. But then when you get back to the more regular junk, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Just from the contrast.
Yeah. No, that was a really good thing that did happen. We all knew we had the freedom to goof around.
Yeah.
That's an example of one that I had the words before the song. We were on a tour bus and nothing much happening. And we're thinking, like, hey, honey, I'll be home. I'll send her my love. And, you know, there was no recording devices, so you had to remember them. But you'd kind of wake up, and it'd be there in the morning, so you'd play it again to fix it.
Yeah.
And John would have remembered it anyway. So we realized, you know, we were writing songs that were memorable, not because we wanted them to be memorable, but because we had to remember them. You know, there's a very practical reason, really.
What was the music that was played in your house? Did your dad listen to music in the house?
My dad was a pianist, an amateur pianist, so he played our piano.
What type of music did he play?
He would play Chicago, Chicago.
Like show tunes?
Yeah. He played at home, so it was lovely hearing someone play piano at home. But his main thing was New Year's Eve, big family party. And he would get on the piano and just play all evening. There was no...
Play and sing to, or just play?
No, he would just play, and then everyone else would sing.
I see.
It was a sing-along. All the ladies, they've got their little drinks. They're all sitting like in the chairs around the thing. And they're all red, Robin comes, popping along. They're all singing. But he got arthritis in his hands, hence me doing exercises all the time. But he couldn't play the piano. So I kind of took over.
Do you feel like you were graduating in the family, like going from the kid watching to all of a sudden taking the chair?
Yeah, exactly.
It's exciting.
Daunting too, because I didn't know all the songs. But it was great, you know, it was very, very nice atmosphere. And it's funny, I say to people, I always thought everyone had loving families and everyone was very nice to each other. And of course, later I found that's not true.
Yeah.
And some people are very unfortunate. John was very unlucky because he had, his dad left his home when he was 3, and John didn't see him till he was famous. And also John's mum got killed. You know, so this was an eye-opener to me. It was like, wow, I thought everyone lived like we did. Yeah. But
it also speaks to the difference in temperaments. As grown-ups, the different experience really changes everything.
That's true. You know, you think about it. Yeah, John,
makes perfect
John
sense.
had a very defensive way.
He had a chip on his shoulder, it sounds like.
Which was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's how he got through that childhood. But I was much more open and just thought, oh, everything's great, you know, optimistic. So as a team, that worked.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I would write, it's getting better all the time. And he would go, it couldn't get much worse, which was like the perfect foil for that song, you know. So I loved the way he would always add like a little cynicism to it. But thinking back on it, it's crazy because he wore glasses and I didn't. So if we got into an argument, I would call him Four Eyes. You know, 4 eyes. And he would go, pigeon chest. My chest is not as developed as his or whatever. So, you know, we did all that. But these things obviously bring you together.
Yeah. You probably did everything together in those days.
Yeah, you did, yeah. We spent a lot of time together. Also, we played guitar together. So that any chord John knew, I knew. And if we learned a new chord, I remember George and I walking into the local music shop. It's called Hesse's, Frank Hesse. And there's a guy called Jim Gretty, who was a bit of a jazz player. And he was filling in, working in the shop. But we watched him play once, and he did this. Me and George went, "What is that?" He goes, I said, "Well, it's F something. I don't remember. I don't even know what it is to this day." But he was like, "Wow, show us how you do that." So we got it. So now me and George knew this chord.
Yes.
So we'd show that to John. Look at this, you know.
Yeah.
And so now we all knew this chord. I used it in.
Amazing.
John was at art school by this time, so they had great art parties, and there'd be great girls. John would kind of invite us. We were his little friends.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a little bit embarrassing at that age. So I would wear like a black turtleneck sweater, and we were all trying to be French. We were trying to be, you know, we loved the French artists, particularly the girls. Juliette Gréco. She was like, "Wow, look at that." Brigitte Bardot, you know, these were our favorite ladies. But I would sit in a corner and think, you know, well, if I wear the black turtleneck and play guitar, then they might think I'm French. And therefore they'd be attracted to me. So I'd be kind of go, "Oh, Jean, hi, baby. You know. And years later, John said, "Remember that crazy little French song you used to do at the parties?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "You should finish that." The other thing was, because I had this Frenchy thing in my mind, Edith Piaf did a record, Milord. Milord.
Je chanterai, Milord, qui n'ont pas eu de chance. Regardez-moi, Milord, vous ne m'avez jamais vu. Mais vous pleurez, Milord, ça je l'aurais jamais cru.
I was kind of going off the back of that, Milord, Michel. And then I had a very good friend, actually the guy who introduced me to John, Ivan. He was married by this time, and his wife, Jan, was a French teacher. I said, "Oh, Jan, you got to help me. What's a rhyme for Michel?" She said, "Ma belle." I said, "What's that mean?" She said, my beautiful." I said, "Great, Michel, ma belle." And then, how do you say these are words that go together well in French? Sont les mots qui vont très bien ensemble. Okay, you better write that one out. But so between her and John reminding me to do the song, I had Michel.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you know, that really was, I say, looking back.
Yeah.
I astound myself.
Spur of the moment.
Yeah.
My Michel.
Now you hear, at this point, it slows down a little.
Yeah.
No one could figure that out. It was our attempt to be like the Milord record, which she slows, Milord, but we didn't dare do that. So we just slowed down a little bit. It just sounds like we got it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, we had 1.5 hours to make that track,
Yeah.
which is pretty economical.
Come into the studio, playing it for the guys. Are you already thinking about what else it needs?
No, that's all live in the studio. That's,
Right then?
Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't, I mean, you'd think we would have got together and worked out those harmonies.
Yeah.
Of course, George Martin, our producer, was very helpful with that too. George would sort of say, "Okay, Paul, your line is," or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Okay, George, yours is," and George would go, do, or whatever. There'd be strange little lines or unrelated, but you just had to remember them.
Yeah.
Or else the grown-up would tell you off.
Wow. Were there any inspirations, like other bands that you would listen to for harmonies besides the Everly Brothers?
Beach Boys, I think, was big. I think he'd heard one of our albums and thought, I've got to do better, you know. And that was Pet Sounds, which I loved. It was like still one of my big albums, you know. So atmospheric and different.
Yes.
And yet it was the Beach Boys still, you know.
Yeah.
And we heard Pet Sounds and thought, right, we've got to do something better than that.
Yeah.
So we did Sgt. Pepper. I think we'd sort of taken 6 months period in which to do it. And the musical papers were starting to say, oh, what's happened to the Beatles? They've dried up, but we're busily working away in Abbey Road, ting, ting, like little Snow White's elves, ting, ting, ting.
And you stopped touring, so that
Yeah,
gave you
and
more
also
time,
the songs were getting more complicated. But it was very exciting knowing we were doing Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah. There's stories of people driving through Laurel Canyon that weekend, and anywhere you drove, all you heard was the Sgt. Pepper album coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that weekend was like a hot weekend, summer, and then our record just comes. So everyone's got it for Friday night, they got it for Saturday, and they're all getting stoned and getting drunk and everything to it. And on Sunday, Jimi Hendrix was doing a concert. So Jimmy came on and he opens with Sgt. Pepper. He'd learned it. It was only 2 days before.
Hey, don't really want to start the show, but I think you might like to know. We gotta say you're gonna sing the song, and he wants you to join along. So let it just
He did a great version of it, really wacky, loud, and beautiful. He's using his vibrator arm, his Bigsby arm, and he's going, "Gow!" You know, say that put you out of tune.
Yeah.
So he starts kind of tuning up a little bit. And the guitarists in the audience go, "There's no way back, Jim. You know, you're going to have to just stand there and tune it.
Yeah.
Even though it's your second number.
Yeah.
You can't just crack on."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he leans in on the mic and says, "Is Eric out there?" Looking for Eric Clapton.
To tune it for him?
Yeah. Eric's out there, but Eric's hiding. He doesn't want to be seen in the audience. "Will you tune this for me, man?"
So funny.
Yeah. It was a big release.
Your first gatefold as well.
Yeah.
It had the gatefold with the big picture in the center, and I remember it had cutouts.
It had little
Had a
cutouts
lot
and
of
everything,
stuff.
yeah. And the thing is, you know, the sort of thing I was thinking at that time, and I knew the others thought similarly, was that when we'd been in Liverpool and you'd bought an album, it was a huge event. You're actually buying a vinyl album. Because you were, number one, you had to save up lots of money to get it. Then I had a half-hour bus ride, so you'd take it out of its brown paper bag and you'd study it.
Yeah.
On the way home, and you'd read every little liner note and every little photo. So we wanted to do something that was really value for money,
Yeah.
and that if you were on that bus ride, you'd need a few bus rides to check this thing out. When we were kids, I used to get on the bus, and the next stop, George would get on. We were going to the same school. It's called the Liverpool Institute High School for Boys, where there were 1,000 boys. That was it, no girls. Anyway, on one of these journeys, there was a free seat next to me, and he sat down there, and we started talking. And we talked about what we loved, music and guitars. George was very into guitars.
If you were guessing, how many other kids on the bus cared about music?
I would guess one if you were lucky.
So you felt a connection to him right away just
Yeah.
because you had guitar in common,
We both
and it
used
was
to-
rare.
It's quite rare, yeah. So we got to know each other really well. And we used to hitchhike, and the guy would give you a lift. It was great, great. So you'd get to him and he'd say, "Well, I can't go any further than this. I now go over here." So he'd drop us. And what we'd do is we'd go to a little shop and we would buy a tin of rice pudding. It's called Ambrosia. And I very resourcefully had brought along with me a little camping stove.
Wow.
So we're at the side of the road, trying to hitchhike. We've got this little open can.
Wow.
We weren't Beatles, we weren't anything, but if you look back, it's quite amazing. See,
like
there's two of the
you were
Beatles
like-
eating rice cream.
On the side of the
Really,
road,
on the side of the
hitchhiking.
road, yeah. And then we go to the pictures, we go to the cinema together often. That was sort of the great, entertainment. And there used to be an advert for furniture, and it was Link Furniture. And so the advert said, "Thinking of linking?" So me and Georgia was like that, thinking of linking. I mean, if that was a Buddy Holly song, it would be kind of a good one. So we kind of wrote this. Well, I've been thinking of linking my love with you. Thinking of linking our love so true. Thinking of linking can only be done by two.
Fantastic.
So those little things, and we only remember that when we were doing the Beatles anthology. George said to me, "Do you remember this?" What? I was thinking of Lincoln. Yeah. So, those things, I say, all of that brought you together. And then I did the whole sort of thing with John, similar songs and hitchhiking and all of that. So by the time we came to be a recording group, I think this is why we could so quickly just put together a lick, and that made it more joyful.
1, 2.
Doesn't even sound like a bass.
Very aggressive sound, isn't it?
Considering it's accompanying this,
Yeah.
I don't know how someone controlled you.
I've never heard a bass sound like that before. It's very unusual. It's almost like two songs are happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like two whole,
Yeah.
either one of them great,
Yeah.
and then right on top of each other. It's
This
fascinating.
is another song here.
Yeah.
Well, no, baby, what she's got done. Yeah, you got it, yeah. Oh,
Still my guitar gently.
Fascinating.
yeah.
No, it's just amazing.
That's interesting you bring that up. I was not conscious of that till we listened to it now. I hear that tone on it, and it's like, wow.
If you had a studio musician come in, the best musician in the world, to play on your new song, he would not play that.
We'll never do that.
No, because it's not.
He'd be much more sensible.
It's just fascinating to see it come together. You guys were essentially blending styles, but not by mixing two genres, but really by mixing two feels.
Yeah.
Like when the Beatles played a reggae-influenced number, it doesn't sound like reggae, it sounds like the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah.
So it becomes something new.
Yeah, that's, I think that's a nice fact of music, is even though you're inspired by something, it's going to sound like you. I meet a lot of young groups, and I say, I can't read music or write it. They go, what? And it's like, well, that doesn't work. Well, if you've done this, how could you do it without? But it means that it's here. It's not on a bit of paper. tell kids who want to learn the piano, I say, okay, here's you go. Start with middle C. We all know that as the first thing in a piano lesson. And then think about like the Eddie Cochran thing. I say, well, that's a chord if you play those together. And you just got that, remember this and that. So you do that, one space, finger, one space, finger. So there you got the chord. I say, you know, we started there. And so you could kind of write a song with that. But if you just move this up one, it's the same shape. You've got another chord. So now you got two chords. You move it up again, you got three chords. And move it up again, you got four chords. And then again, you got five. And then now you got six. Well, you don't need more than that. So you can now put permutations of that, and you get songs. You know, like. It's that same little shape. But that shape is a marvelous shape. You can do anything with that shape. You know.
Did your dad teach you that shape?
No, we figured that out from. We had to know this to do Jerry Lee Lewis. Oh, baby, whole lot of shake going on. So once you figure that, so it really gets super fascinating, I think.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got all the chords you can play with, put those in permutations, then mess with the bass notes. Obvious thing to do is to do the note one octave down that relates to that chord, but you can do
harmony.
You're getting really dramatic now. And I think that's all we ever did, you know, just experimented. John doing it, imagine, you can hear that's him. It's just sort of what we'd learned based on that. I saw John Legend the other night, and John's doing this. I forget what the song was. And then he sort of goes. Well, that's those. You know, if you put some nice soul stuff over that. I got my pain in my heart. You know. Or when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Same chords.
Wow.
And measure wisdom, let it be.
Wow.
Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. 'Cause there will be an answer. Let it be.
Let it be. There will be an answer. Let it be.
Our favorite composer was Bach in the Beatles because it was nearest to what we were doing. And we always used to say, just put a beat behind it. Be better. It'd be better, man. What I liked about it was the mathematical thing, so that you kind of go, well, in Eleanor Rigby. You do that. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you found out this is what they were doing. 1, 2, and then, you know, so you put those together, and then on top of it, you might put. So you've got like, you know, 2 or 4 or 8. Very
in the
simple
same space.
mathematics. It's all happening together, so it gives this lovely feel of something satisfying. Eleanor.
Let's do it.
Yesterday. So this was like, it'd be nice to, I think this song could suit, but instead of a quartet, it was now an octet. Again, just to do something a bit different. And I brought it in like, a little bit like that. Yeah, I brought it in like, Ellen Rigby, and then George would show me, he said, well, okay, that's sort of rock and roll. It's all pretty much in one octave. But he would then say, okay, so the cello would go there, and then the viola would go there, and then, so he would separate all the notes.
Yeah.
And that's a fabulous orchestration that he did.
And this doesn't have the piano in it.
No.
You wrote it on the piano and then
was-
decided to...
Yeah, that was the thing, because, you know, yesterday there'd just been the one guitar.
Yeah.
So we decided we'd kind of try and go a little bit further.
Yeah.
And just have this. And then I would sing to this. You know, so I'd show George the chords. He would then transpose it. And then George would talk to the musicians, sort of say, dum, dum, dum. I want it kind of really bam, bam. It's quite bright, staccato, dum, 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 dum. And they got into it.
Yeah.
They loved it, you know. It's a nice little arrangement on its own.
Yeah.
And then I sang it, and I didn't think I was singing it well. I remember talking to George, I'm not singing this. He said, no, it's okay. You're doing it. It's good. And he was calming me down. And then we double-tracked it. I think probably because I didn't think I'd sung it well. So they were letting it double-track it. We cover any sins.
When you first heard it played by the octet, what was the feeling like?
It was very exciting, actually. Downstairs in Abbey Road, the 8 guys assembled, and they did it live.
Did you listen from the control room? Do you remember?
Yeah, I would kind of go down, say hi, and you know, listen to it down there,
Yeah.
which is always nice first.
Yeah.
Then you go up and see what the engineers are making of it.
Yeah.
You know, they'd put it all together, put the right little bits of fairy dust on it,
Yeah.
and they now made it like a record. It's funny, on the EMI desk that we first worked on, there was a thing on the end of the desk here, a little switch. He'd put it up for classical and then down for pop. So ours was always in the pop position. It was funny because we we took things very on face value. We said,
Yeah.
why have they got a better set of EQs than we've got? They said, no, it's not better. Pop, you need more of the sort of aggression and so on. So classical, it's more mellow and stuff. But that was our way of thinking.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, how come they've got that? We want a bit of that. With Penny Lane, I'd come into the studio, and the night before, I happened to be watching on television the Brandenburg concertos by Bach.
Yeah.
I just kind of got it on the background almost, you know, I'm listening to it. And then there's a little trumpet, very high little trumpet that Bach uses. And I came in the next day, I said to George, Martin, I said, what was that? He said, oh, that's a piccolo trumpet. What do you think about George? He knew all the best players.
Yeah.
From the classical orchestras. And there's a guy called David Mason, who was a really good player. And so we just booked him.
Yeah.
So we go in there and we've done the track and we're ready to put this. We've left room for a solo. George and David sort of say, okay, so what do we want to play? And I go, and they go, oh, okay, hang on. And they're writing it down. So we were kind of making it up on the spot.
Yeah.
And so I went and put like an impossible high note. And David Mason turns to me and says, well, that's officially out of the range of the piccolo trumpet, even. And I kind of give him a look like, yeah, like, you can do it. You know, he goes, okay. So he plays it. And it's, it haunted him for the rest of his life, you know. Yeah.
flute's beautiful too.
Yeah, it's a Mick.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of it. And it, well, might be for you, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
But with us, it's going, no, it sounds good.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. It's fine, you know. So we'd leave accidents a lot of the time.
Would the engineers ever fight back, like if you did something and didn't like the way the meters were looking or anything like that?
In the beginning, yeah. Because they're trained by the record company to follow the meters, and you're not supposed to go in the red.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know. But we'd say, no, go in the red, go in the red. Because it would make the guitars like hot, make an acoustic guitar like into an electric guitar.
Yeah.
These days, not so easy. These older boards, you could defeat them. If it went into the red, it would distort a bit.
Yeah.
Now they're rather good and they can handle it.
I see.
Which is a pity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we used to love that.
Would you ever, after recording a guitar song, decide to reinforce the guitars with piano or?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's really a good idea. So you've got a little bass part, and the bass is doing a doom, 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 doom. Then you come. That combined with the bass is a great sound.
Yeah.
This gives it the punch.
Yeah. Like the attack.
Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me a bit of the piano. It's still there in Abbey Road, actually. We used to call it Mrs. Mills' piano, because there was a pianist who did all the sort of, and they're like, I can't play it. Stride. But Mrs. Mills' piano inspired that. You know, I mean, I wrote it at home, but it was like, no, gotta do this on that funky little piano. And songs like that, I like to kind of change my voice a bit. So I like to sort of get a harder voice. Lady Madonna, instead of Lady Madonna. So you go, Lady Madonna, children at your feet. Wonder how you managed to make ends meet. Lady Madonna, yeah.
So the singer would be the same guy who's playing that piano part. Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like a character study.
Yeah. It's one of the things I'd like to do, you know.
Love that sound of the tape starting.
Yeah.
Such a good sound.
3, 4.
As I was walking along, I sit and watch all the children.
Yeah.
They seemed to say to me, I couldn't tell what you was thinking. But I knew you was through.
EMI, my record label, they've got studios everywhere, you know. Brazil, China, and I was into tenor guitar. Chink, 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 chink. Little sort of African-y thing. So I like that, so I just plumped for Lagos. Let's go there. Okay, now go, boy.
Stuck inside these four walls. Sent inside forever.
Really good vocal. Good vocal.
Nice, a gentle little.
Never seeing no one. Nice again. Like you. Mama. You.
I'm drumming on this too. A couple of members of my band rang me up the night before we were due to leave and said, we're not coming. For an hour or so, he was like, oh, what a bummer, I don't believe it, you know, God, you know. And then my sort of optimistic spirit came back, and I sort of thought, you know what, we're gonna make a record.
That's the right term.
There's a little period when certain people started writing like rock opera.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice. It was like different. So I thought I'd have a go at it.
that a move? Yeah.
If I ever get out of here, thought of giving it all away to a registered charity. All I need is a pint today. If I ever get out of here, if we ever get out of here.
Yeah, again, unexpected twists and turns. Cinematic.
Well, the rain exploded with a mighty crash as we fell into the sun. And the first one said to the second one there, I hope you're having fun. Band on the run. Band on the run.
So we went to Lagos where the studio was just being kind of finished, but it was good. And I had with me the tapes of all the songs for the album. However, we were warned, whatever you do, don't go out late in certain areas. And so, of course, we go to a friend's house and we go out late at night. Hippies, we just did not listen to anyone. So a car pulls up. The guy gets out the car. And I go into Liverpool mode. I go, oh, that is so nice of you. You're gonna give us a lift? No, get back in the car. So I bundle him back in the car.
Yeah.
And 5 of them jumped out the car. One of them had a knife. Linda's screaming at him. So they took all our stuff, including my demos for Band on the Run. That's the only thing I was really pissed about. Yeah. And so now we had to make the album with just 3 of us, me, Linda, and Denny, without the demo recordings.
Yes.
And so, again, we just thought, right, let's do this. And we just became determined to make it a good record.
Yeah, the band on the run. The band on the run.
Do you feel like by going there, it impacted the album?
I was kind of half wondering whether we'd pick up a lot of African vibes and maybe musicians, but Graceland thing, you know. But we didn't. The only thing happened was I went to see Fela Kuti.
Yeah, man, and him to carry seeds, oh. For them culture to carry seeds. During this time, them come colonize us. Them come teach us to carry seeds. Long, 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 long time ago.
This was at the African Shrine, which was his club outside Lagos. You were sitting right by it, the front row seats.
Yeah. What was the energy in the room? Like,
The energy was great. It's all...
were people dancing? Or?
Yeah. When he came on and his band kicked in, wow. I still remember the riff.
So cool.
And his whole band kicked in. So there was Fela at the front with a little piece of piano. In the middle, at the back, he's got 2 conga players. They're like the rhythm box.
Yeah.
So you just go, they keep that same rhythm. This side and that side, like stereo. He's got the shakers and the drummer, he would go.
Fills.
Kind of fills.
Yeah.
2 guitars. One's the tenor guitar, and the other one's a little bit more lead guitar. Then he's got his sax section. The music was so incredible that I wept just when it hit on the groove. That was one of the greatest music moments in my life.
Yeah, it sounds
Hearing
incredible.
that so live.
Beautiful. Let me play something else. Very different energy.
What you got now?
I got this one. It'll be fun to hear.
Don't go jumping waterfalls. Please keep to the lake.
It's a pretty little song, this, yeah. He said modestly.
Who jump waterfalls sometimes can make mistakes. And I need love.
This is also, even if it's not an electronic song, this melody is very today. This is a very modern melody. I know so. It's like, it doesn't, this sounds like you could hear this now in an unusual way.
And it wouldn't be the same if you ever should decide to go away.
They kind of did get lost, the album, but sort of deep fans know that one.
Yes.
And often write to me about it. And
Yeah.
but I think I slightly regret it, that the strings on it are just little weedy synth little things.
I think that might be part what makes it modern, though.
Maybe. Well,
Do you know? It's like,
You know,
I don't know. It's the,
hey, you know, the thing is, I can have regrets. They don't have to be right. Do you know what I'm saying? I think all of us, we go, oh, we should have done that.
Yeah.
Somebody else say, no, you don't need to. That's fine.
But I don't see you as someone as having a lot of regrets looking back on music that you
Not
made.
really, no. Forge ahead constantly. And no, that's what I love. That's what I love about music, life. That there's always that next little song that you can be thinking about or writing. You know, I'm writing a thing at the moment.
That's great. That's great.
Life can be hard, but then
So good.
that's when we start to put it together again. She leads me on, and I'm enchanted by her beauty.
Yeah. Incredible.
Oh, good, man. Oh, great. I goofed it a bit, but...
No, but it sounds like the beauty of it is when I hear it, it sounds like, oh, this is a song that's always been around.
We
You know,
know
like
that. We know
in
this
a
one.
good way, but not in a way that I've actually heard it before, but in a like, oh yeah, this is like one of those songs that feels like it's in the air.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's what I've sort of done all my life. That's what I'm still doing.
Yeah.
Just trying to discover just a little thing that sounds nice. Someone said Mozart once said, I write the notes that like each other. And I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Sounds good to me.
Take me to daddy, let me bring it out, and keep your comrade warm. I'm back in the USSR. Hey, you don't know how lucky you are, boys. Back, and we're back.
What do you remember about this?
Woo!
What do you remember about that moment?
Writing the song,
Yeah.
you know, as a kind of spin-off, like a joke on the Chuck Berry back in the USA. For some reason, maybe I was showing Ringo what I thought the drumming should be. I think, and he might have said, well, you do it. He might have also said, well, you do it.
So you played drums on this?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How long did you write the song before this was recorded, would you say?
It wouldn't have been that long, because you pretty much wrote the thing and got in the studio.
In the old days when you were doing cover songs, you would all learn the cover songs together, so you were in the habit of learning a song quickly.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's true. Yeah, and we never rehearsed. I mean, now I rehearse quite a bit, because you got a big production as well. But then I remember us sort of saying, you know, we had a day's rehearsal, and we're going to do the next day. Everyone was like, that's enough. You know, we've done one day. What more do you want?
Before the first record, though,
Yeah.
how many hours did you play together?
Yeah, exactly. At least 10,000,
Yeah.
according to the man.
When was the point where it's like, this is different than everyone else in terms of popularity?
Okay, so we'd played in Hamburg, and then we played in England, and we got more and more popular. And I always say it's a good thing, because, you know, a lot of kids who go on these TV talent shows are propelled into stardom, and they don't know how to deal with it. But we had this staircase, so that we would play ballrooms, then we play theaters, then we do a bit of television, and we do a radio series, we do this and this and that. So we were getting famous, and then we'd had #1 records, and I think that's when we first started to think, we're famous. We're #1 in the land. But my thing was America. No British acts had gone to America and been successful. They'd all come back. So I remember taking Brian Epstein aside, saying, Brian, I said, we can't go to America until we've got a #1 record there. We've got to wait. And we did. We waited and waited, and it didn't happen until I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold.
We were playing in Paris when a telegram, the old-fashioned email, came through. Congratulations, boys. I Want to Hold Your Hand, #1 in the USA. And that was a party night.
I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand.
You think it was because you loved American music so much, or
Yeah.
what is that
Well,
why?
that's what it was, yeah. We loved American music. It was the blues tradition, the rock and roll tradition, Elvis. Everything we listened to was American. Little Richard at the piano, banging away. Blew our minds.
Did you ever get to meet any of those guys?
Richard, we worked with Richard in Hamburg.
Really?
Yeah,
What was that like?
incredible.
Yeah.
You know, for young kids from Liverpool to work with someone like Little Richard.
Golly, Miss Molly, sure like the bone. Woo, golly, Miss Molly, sure like the bone. You're rocking that rolling, yeah. I can't hear your mama call.
It was so great. It was a whole TV hour on its own. You know, we'd go into his dressing room before he went on, and just to hear his stories.
See, you don't have to be the top of the bill to climb the hill. See, it ain't the size of the ship that make you seasick. It's the waves in the ocean. It ain't the man that run the fastest, but the man that endure to the end. So I know that if water fall on a rock long enough, it'll break it.
He was like evangelical or something.
Yeah.
And when he got to Australia, supposed to have thrown all his rings into the water and renounced, you know, materialism or whatever. So we'd ask him, hey, Richard, is it true that, you know, you threw all your rings away and all that? And he'd tell us all the time, yes, child, that's true. I'll tell you. And he had this beautiful way, Southern American way. So yeah, we were massively excited to come to America because these are the people that we loved and they were loving us. This was like, yeah, we've arrived. We were famous.
Yeah. It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Of being accepted is really.
Exactly. Because you think about it, that's sort of what everyone's trying to do. There's obviously the cool guys who want, I don't care, and that's great. But most people, I think most people want to be accepted. It's like, great job.
Yeah, he's good.
You go, okay. He's pleased me. Thank you, girl. And we were writing to our fan audience. But then as things went on, we started to just write for ourselves and figured that the fans would listen to our extension of what we wanted to write. So we did, and we got into kind of more sort of slightly different things. This being 3/4 time. And we used to want to do this on stage. It wasn't a big fan favorite. It was a little bit
Maybe
different.
hard to dance to, too, because of the
It would be hard to
because of
dance
the
to,
groove.
yeah.
But the harmonies are great. And
Yeah,
the
it was
words
nice.
are really
It's
good.
very Everly's.
When I feel blue in the night and I need you.
How impactful were the Everly Brothers on you?
Oh, massively. We always used to say, I was Phil, John was Dom.
His dream.
You listen to Beatles records, I always take the higher harmony than John. That was us being the Everlys. No, we were kind of proud of this one. We thought we were kind of, getting really funky folk.
So she dresses in black. No, he'll never come back. She's dressed in black.
Tell me about albums versus singles, because in modern time, when you put out an album, all your singles are on that album.
Yeah.
But were you guys the first guys to do singles that were not part of albums?
We had the luxury to do that.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming in and they're only going to ever have one hit,
Yeah.
then that had better be on the album.
Yeah.
But we were rather confident.
Yeah.
And then the other great thing was there used to be an A-side and a B-side, as you know.
Yeah.
The B-side earns just as much money as the A-side. So we were trying to write good A-sides, good B-sides.
Yeah.
I remember Phil Spector saying to us, you throw away all your songs. On a record, you're putting 2 good songs on there. He said you should put the hit, and then the other side, just like take the vocal off and call it Sing Along With. Or something.
Sell it twice.
Sell it twice. And we said, no, Phil, we can't do that. So, because you know why? Because we were recently record buyers.
Yeah.
And we would have felt so cheated if we'd have bought that record.
Was it typically an album a year?
It was like an album a year and 4 singles a year.
An album plus 4 additional singles.
Yeah.
The songs were varied on each album, and then every album was varied from the other.
Yeah. It was like, and the pace you were working at.
Yeah.
It'd be like, go down and do the solo then. Come on. Yeah, okay. Run down. Done. Great.
Next.
Next.
Yeah. Amazing.
I remember with And I Love Her.
Yeah.
I brought it in and it was just, I had the chords, do. And then George Martin said, it'd be nice if we could have a little intro. And George Harrison just went, do. Once we'd started to write, we've discovered other people who were writing. This was like a sort of disease that spread, a good disease.
Yeah, everyone
of
could see
songwriting. Everyone sort of started.
He's doing it, I'll try it.
Yeah. At one point, quite early days, we were supporting Roy Orbison. I think he'd always written his stuff. But a very favorite memory of mine is we were on the tour with Roy and we stopped off somewhere for a cup of tea. Roy stayed on the bus. And I remember John and I coming back on the bus afterwards. And there, sitting at the back of the bus with his guitar, there's Roy. There's a pretty woman.
Pretty woman, walking down the street. Pretty woman, the kind I like to read. Pretty woman.
You learn things from people like that. I do a little songwriting class in my old school up in Liverpool. And one of the things I nearly always point out to the students is that it's good to have an end to a song because you've got to let the audience know it's finished. When we're on tour, every song of Roy's got a big end.
It's over.
There's always like a great big note. And he stops. Then it's like, there's nowhere else to go. You've got to clap that. So I say, well, yeah, I don't want you to do that, but think about letting the audience know you've finished. So we'd pick up little tricks like that off Roy.
Remember any other moments where you saw something and you just like never saw anything like it or felt anything like it before?
Kinks. I mean, we loved their first hit. It really got me.
Great
And the
riff,
guitar
too.
riff.
Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at night. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so.
They supported us. We were in Brighton. We were due to come on second half, and they did the first half. We all kind of came out, sort of hid a bit, so we could watch them, you know. No, you really got me. You got me. Na, 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 na. A good little song. Yeah. Seeing Dylan at the Albert Hall was very special. Because
That was when it was still acoustic.
His first half was acoustic, and then the band came on for his electric.
Just don't put on any ears when you're down on Rumorg Avenue.
And all the folkies kind of booed him. They thought he's gone over to the other side. He's sold out to the enemy, you know. We loved it. Then, you know, we were talking about Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Where did you see him play?
We used to go to this club called the Bag of Nails, which is where I would eventually meet Linda. But it was our regular hangout. Because we were in groups, you never got to go to the pub. When you stopped working, the pubs were closed. So you had to get like a drink and maybe something to eat. And this club, Bag of Nails, was that. So I went down there, and you would just sit in an alcove, and you mainly listen to records. The live bands normally weren't that good. Anyway, one night, there's hardly anyone in the club, and I'm there late with a couple of friends. And you hear, to me, some sort of exciting sound, an electric guitar plugging in. If it's all live,
Yeah.
that's, whoa! It's a little bit too loud, but it's very cool. He plugged it in, and we go, oh, that got our attention. And he goes, gong, 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 gong. Hey, Joe.
Where you going now? Grab your head.
And that was another kind of, wow, electric moment. And even though there's hardly anyone in the club, he played this great set, teeth and the whole thing. I think that was like on the Friday night, and then he played again, same club on the Tuesday. Well, it was packed.
I'm going way down south. Way down, listen, no way.
Just
Now,
the word of mouth from How Great Friday.
Word around London. You've got to see this guy. So we all went, I went back to check him out again. And there's Pete Townsend in the audience, Eric Clapton. The word had got around. It was very exciting, but we're kids living it. Well, what's great is as time goes by, they become legends. Yeah. It was a great camaraderie, you know, and it was a great generation. Yeah. And it wasn't just us, it was artists as well. So you'd be hanging with artists and looking at a lot of art. And so I had a few friends who were of that ilk and would turn me on to like cool books and cool music. It wouldn't necessarily find its way onto the record, but it influenced your thinking.
Down.
Rick, this is why we don't go into tapes.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
You know the story, everyone thought it was LSD, Lucy, Sky, Diamond, but it was actually his son, Julian Lennon, who'd been at school and had brought back a little drawing of his school friend, Lucy. He'd drawn stars around her, and so he called them diamonds, and this was Lucy, and because she was sort of floating, so it was Lucy in the sky with diamonds. He said, I think it's a good title for a song.
Yeah.
And we were big Lewis Carroll fans, Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and that was another point of contact for me and John. These lyrics, you know, the kaleidoscope eyes, it's sort of straight out of Alice, almost the Cheshire Cat, who's, you know, vanishes, the caterpillar smoking his big hookah.
Yeah.
And it was a head job, you know, it was like, the truth is everyone was getting stoned.
Yeah.
And it was intentionally a sort of fun album for the high times.
Yeah, it worked.
It did, yeah.
Tell me about first time in India.
So we were in the middle of sort of drug culture, and we were pretty wasted, you know, pretty burned out. We'd seen Maharishi when we were kids on sort of black and white television. And he'd giggle and say, we're going, you know, just kids in Liverpool going, love this guy. And then years later, we did a little course in England, and then we ended up going out to India. Why we were doing it is because we needed it. Yeah. It was all like, oh my God, we were working a lot and recording a lot. So going there was a great relief, you know. So yeah, we went out and stayed at this place in Rishikesh, which are now, apparently, it's the Beatles meditation camp. And it's a little bit run down. I met someone who'd been there. But it was a very gentle time. It was a very beautiful time. And we don't...
Incredible.
Yeah, it was just, you know, it's like, you wanted it to go right through. We could have stopped it halfway.
Yeah.
Taking a breath.
Yeah.
Really. But it was like mischief. No, you know, let's try and see if we can hold it. So it was like...
Yeah.
You know.
And that would have been you, John and George singing together, probably?
So. Yeah.
Typically?
Yeah, that's that high note's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember that. We would do that. It was like, oh, it's so long. It's so long. Yeah, but you can do it. We can do it. No, we can't. It's too long.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're playing around. Yeah, it's fun, you know. So you're pushing yourself. It was great. I said to people, you know, who are into meditation, I was very lucky because I got my mantra off Maharishi himself.
Directly.
So I feel kind of privileged,
Yes.
you know, that we're just there at that time. He basically said, I'm going to give you a mantra. It's ancient words. And why I would give you these words is they've been tried and tested. So I'll give you your word, and I would like you to just repeat it back to me. And if it's right, I'll say yes, and you don't ever say it again. So he told me, and I repeated it back, and that was it.
Yeah.
I used that mantra, and we continued, and it was good.
I learned when I was 14, based on Beatles meditated, so I've got to learn that. So I'm there. I'm with you, and it changed my life only for the better.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Well, I love that about the Beatles.
Yeah.
A lot of our influences were like really good.
Yeah.
You know, sort of spiritual, meditation, this kind of thing. And, you know, so we laid out a few paths for people to follow. And it has, I think, it's had a good effect on the world, you know?
Absolutely.
But you're looking back on it, it's a great blessing that people picked up on it, and it actually helped them in their lives. For us, the worst thing was to be bored. We're young 20-year-olds, and we've already got some success. So we've got the excitement of youth and the sort of speed of youth.
Yeah.
And a lot of the engineers have come up with us. Yeah. So they knew how stupid we were and how cheeky we were and how, you know, ambitious we were. And it rubbed off, you know, saying to him, come on, get more of this, more of this, more of this, more of that. And he'd kind of, you know, they'd get a little look on their face like, we're all naughty boys in the studio. We're going to actually break a few rules here.
Yeah.
And if it worked, we'd go, yes.
He's a real man, sitting in his nowhere land. He knows nowhere ends. He's as blind as he can be, just sees what he wants to see. Nowhere man used to see.
Remember a song called Nowhere Man? We wanted like a really cutting electric guitar sound. So George did it once on a very cutting tone. His amp was full treble and his guitar was. It sounded pretty good. We thought we wanted to try and push it. So the engineers sort of put full treble on it. And we said, now, can you do more? They said, well, no, that's it. So well, what about if you took that and put it over to this set of EQs? Couldn't you do it all again?
Wow.
And they'd go, well, you know. So we'd have them go through a few channels, each time putting this treble on it. To have a bit more freedom and allow ourselves more freedom, and George Martin allowed us more freedom. So we could then kind of push the envelope a bit.
Joan was quizzical, studied pataphysical science in the home. Late nights all alone with a test tube.
First thing that's fascinating about it is that sounds really more like a
Tuba.
horn, yeah, tuba.
Yeah, I think I was trying to get that effect.
How do you even do that?
Well, you play it very short. Boom, boom. You don't let the bass ring on. Boom, boom, which is tuba.
Yeah.
Boom, boom.
It really sounds like that. I mean, it's remarkable.
Well, I think, you know, the character of the song is kind of a parody.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's see what we have here. What instrument was that?
That's Moog.
Really?
And that was, Robert Moog was there. One of the great things about working at Abbey Road was they were at the forefront of technology. So one day we were just told that there was this guy called Robert Moog in one of the upper rooms, and he'd got a load of equipment in there.
All these instrumental sounds were made electronically on a single musical instrument. It's called the Moog synthesizer. It produces sounds in a matter of minutes which would normally take radiophonic experts with their complicated equipment days of work and multiple re-recording to achieve.
This was the whole wall. Wow. It was like an ancient computer, you know, it was a whole wall filled with stuff, and he was just showing us all the various filters and that. So I was just messing around, and I thought, oh, I've got to use that on something. So I thought, well, this is okay, you could use it, because it's quite tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So
it's also interesting because it's such a, I'll say, traditional style song.
Yeah.
Rooted in the past, yet it's a really modern instrument.
We did a bit of that.
Yeah.
You do one style and then juxtapose it with another, and the sum of the parts was okay.
Yeah, new.
Bang, bang, Maxwell Silver hammer came down upon her head. Bang, bang, Maxwell Silver hammer.
That was our roadie, Mal.
He was dead.
Yeah. So we wanted the sound of an anvil.
Yeah.
So, you know, now you sort of dial it up. But then you had to get an anvil. So we got this bloody great blacksmith anvil, and he hit it with a hammer.
Hard to get it in there.
Yeah.
They're heavy.
He's a big boy.
No, they're really heavy.
He's a big
though.
boy.
Yeah. So I think you played a lot of the instruments on this one.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the piano, though, because there's these arpeggios. It's a bit flash for me. Doodle-a-diddle, doodle-a-diddle, doodle-a. Makes me think that was George Martin. Because, you know, I can play piano, but I'm not that good.
Would he sit in and play sometimes?
Yeah. If we wanted anything that was a little bit difficult. George Martin was like our teacher, just because the age, he was a little bit older. It wasn't much. I mean, I think we always thought of him as an old man. I think he was like probably 30 when he started with us, which I certainly don't think of as old now. But it was a great team thing, you know. We were going in the studio. George Martin might not even know what we were going to come up with.
Yeah.
We'd come up with it, and then by knocking it around, we'd have a Beatle record, rather than just this little song that we'd come in with. You know, you'd write it just as the keyboard and the vocal. That's me writing, although there'd be stuff mixed on there.
Bang, bang, Maxwell Silver.
Pretty much like
So that's how I write it. Yeah. And then you get in the studio and you make up all the little vocal things or the guitar lines, or because Mr. Moog is upstairs, you grab his Moog.
Yeah.
Gets a bit funky.
Yeah. Guitar in this one too.
A little bit of glide.
That's
That's not me. The way I could do it which I don't think this is, would be to slow the tape by half. Because the great thing about 4-track machines is if you take it down by an octave. So the arpeggio, you know, it might just be, you know,
And then you'd speed it
I'd
up.
be able to do that, but then it'd come.
And you play it an octave lower than you want to
And you
hear
played
it.
an octave lower. That was always a great experimental thing, just with one flick of the wrist, boom, boom. So we use that quite a lot, that feature. Hard Day's Night is a great guitar solo. Half speed, straight up. Regular, it's up the octave.
Wow.
You can't hear the effect.
Incredible. But that would have been too fast to play.
Yeah, I mean, and get it really accurate. And also, these were the great fun experiments.
Yeah.
You sort of say, well, oh, if George is having trouble, do it, you go, okay, wait a minute, let's think. So George Martin would probably say, well, look, if we took it half speed, so you can hear that, and then it comes back up. And it's got a ringy, it's got a slightly synthetic sound to it. It sounds
also
like George
cool.
might have. Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, we loved all of that. It's like being professors in a laboratory who were just discovering all these little things. And the chord at the front.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night. I should be
George Martin's helping on film music.
Yeah.
So because this was the opening to this film, Beatles' first film, bang, we do the chord, but he's augmented it. You can see he's thinking film. Bang! George Martin was very interesting. He'd been in the Fleet Air Arm, which was the Navy Air Force. We said, well, did you fly the plane? He said, no. Did you navigate? No. Were you the tail gunner? No. It turned out he was the producer.
Always.
Kind of.
Yeah.
He was putting the package together. And then he talked to us about sort of quasi-scientific things.
Yeah.
So he had a little board, which was an oscillator, and he could generate various pitches. So he'd start, and then he'd say, you hear that? We go, yeah. You hear that? We go, yeah. Yeah. He said, now here, where I'm going now, where none of us can hear it.
Yeah.
He said, but dogs can hear this. Wow. We were doing Sgt. Pepper around about the time. So we said, okay, we've got to have that pitch on the thing, because we want it to come in and a dog in some room go, what's that? So we put that, it is there somewhere.
It is?
I can't hear it.
Yeah. We have to do a dog
That's why
test.
dogs love Sgt. Pepper. But he'd tell us these stories and stuff. So you knew that you could talk to George about these things. George, what if we played it backwards, and then what if we did that? Well, and he'd go along with it.
Yeah.
You know? Because there were a lot of other producers on EMI. I'm sure they would have just said, another time, let's get the record done, you know. And wouldn't have been interested in backwards noises or tape loops. I had an old tape recorder that you could make a loop instead of the 2 reels of tape. You could make a little loop that would go round and round and round. There's a little button that says superimpose. It keeps recording forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So once you've gone round, what was there is still there, but it's now going in the background a bit.
And there's always a random aspect to this, because you don't
Yeah.
really have control of the rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of an art, because you got to know when to stop.
Yeah.
Because you kind of go down, 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 down. And you know, you've got to sort of stop soon, because otherwise you've wiped out those 2 original ideas.
Yeah.
But when you set it against the band,
Sounds like it's played.
yeah.
One chord.
And then we put that other chord in there.
But the drone chord is still going.
Yeah. Cool drum.
You know, I think we have an alternate version here. Let's just hear what was different. So that might have been on the way to finding
I
the
think
sound.
it must have been, yeah.
And would that have happened relatively quickly? Like you'd have played it this first way?
I think so. You know, as time went on, we had much more freedom. We had much longer to do things. But it actually spurred us on to do some new stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the drum sound on this is, I love it.
Yes.
It's a really great Ringo sound. Just saying something a little bit wrong, you know, but it sounded right. Man, John would go, what did you say? He said Hard Day's Night. I don't believe it. That's great. He wanted to order sliced bread for toast somewhere. So he said, can I have some sliced bread? We never used that one, but it was still good. It was a Ringoism, you know. Well, I don't know what we're gonna do about this. He said, well, I don't know, tomorrow never knows. That was one of his.
Yeah.
I mean, now, you know, you say Hard Day's Night and people say, oh yeah, I get it. Sounds like.
Because it's in the culture now. But
It's
when
in
you
the
first
culture.
heard it, it was like, oh, that's an odd, funny expression.
Also, the name Beatles
Yeah.
is in the culture now. So if you say Beatles, nobody goes, ooh, creepy crawly. But when we started, everyone did.
What do you remember when you first met Ringo?
We first met Ringo by seeing him playing in Hamburg.
Yeah.
He was kind of suave. He was more grown up.
Yeah.
I mean, he always was the oldest in the Beatles and still is. Because he'd been working professionally before we had. We were kind of much more amateur than Ringo was. He had like a big car. None of us had cars. And Ringo's great thing, he's so suave. He would light, if he was with a girl, he would light 2 cigarettes.
Like Humphrey Bogart.
He'd seen it in the films,
Yes.
you know. The drink he had was bourbon and 7. We didn't know what that was, and we could get it at the bar, so we all started drinking bourbon and 7. We went back to Liverpool and said, bourbon and 7, please. They said, what? What are you talking about? What's that? And they didn't have bourbon and they didn't have 7. So it became Scotch and Coke. There was one thing we were particularly impressed with, which was the drum part to What Did I Say, the Ray Charles record that I loved. From a height on that. Yeah. Not many drummers could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, he could play like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow. Yeah, so we saw him doing that in Hamburg with Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. And it was like, wow, he's really good. And so we admired him and we'd go around to watch them just to hear him. So that was it. We knew him from Hamburg. And once our then drummer, Pete, didn't show up and Ringo sat in for him, I so clearly remember me, John and George, but as the front line, standing in the line at the front on 3 mics, and this guy behind us. And when he kicked in the drums, it was like, oh.
Well, she looked at me.
And we were like thrilled. Wow, he just lifted us. This is different. I remember like looking at the others just as we're singing, it was like, wow. It was a moment. It was like a big moment. Wow, I hope we could stay with this guy.
Great.
He just brought the whole band together.
One of the things I've noticed in listening to the tracks is that sometimes the songs will start as a folk song or a ballad,
Yeah.
and then the rhythm section comes in, and the rhythm section is thinking something completely different than that, and it changes the whole picture fast.
Yeah, well, you say, you know, you bring the song in, you kick it around.
Yeah.
And then if someone gets an idea, oh, why don't we do that? Or how about this on the drums? Or Ringo, like on a song like Get Back, we're just kicking it around as a little jam. Dun, 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 dun. And then he gets on the drums. So he's got this little kind of almost military thing going. Well, that really then, oh, great, difference. As you know,
Absolutely.
instead of just then somebody else needs to fill in.
Yeah.
But if he's doing made a world of difference.
A 1, a 2, a 3.
For I have got another girl, she's sweeter than all the girls, and I met quite a few. Nobody in all the world.
The rhythm track is flawless.
That's pretty straight country.
That's swing.
Yeah. Me and Ringo kind of always knew, you know,
It better be good.
if we don't get this right, this is going to be on the record. We've screwed it. It was kind of a little bit scary. You had to get it.
Yeah.
Early days, particularly, one of our things was, if the producer doesn't notice a mistake, it's not a mistake. You know, don't say anything.
Who played the guitar in that?
I'm not sure.
Really?
I mean, I wanted to say it's me because it's bad enough.
It's a bold choice for
Bold
you to play that.
mistakes.
It's beautiful.
That's me. I specialize in bold mistakes. I mean, that's the funny thing now, because you've got the opportunity to go back in.
Yeah.
I would have, those couple of little licks that I miss, where you go, do, 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 and you can see I got stuck. You'd go back in and fix that.
Yeah. But maybe the reason
there's
that
kind
this
of an
is-
innocence. that-
Absolutely. It's real.
It's
This is
real, all right.
It adds to the energy of the track of like, oh, it's so cooking that he can barely even play it. You know what I mean? Like it's running away.
Okay, I'll go with that explanation.
Okay.
I wish I had you in school. No, he didn't make a mistake. He's just as enthusiastic. Yeah.
Did you ever hear any of the other music that was being made at Abbey Road at the time? Like when your session was over, would you hop around and hear different stuff?
Yeah, we would. Floyd came in after us.
Yes.
Pink Floyd and did a lot of cool experimental stuff. Yeah. This was more Wings period, but they were next door, making Dark Side of the Moon.
Wow.
Well, that was pretty cool.
Did you get to hear anything? Did you listen ever?
Yeah. The engineers were quite interchangeable.
Yes.
So an engineer that would work on their stuff would work on ours, and he'd play us some of the Dark Side of the Moon stuff.
Wow.
A guy who ran our record company came up to me one day. He said, "Would you have any interest in doing a Bond theme?" You know, I said, "Oh yeah." So he said, "It's Live and Let Dies," and I think he would give me a copy of the book. So I read the Ian Fleming book on the Saturday, I think it was.
Yeah.
And on the Sunday, day after, I wrote the song. Went to see George March and started developing it with George. So, how's it going? When you were young and your heart was an open book. This is great, George.
Oh, cool.
Well, it's for a film,
Yeah.
so you can go
Yeah.
further.
Yeah. So cool.
What does it matter to you?
Completely unexpected.
Because it was in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Great.
You got to give the young fella hell.
So when you wrote it, it would be like,
Those little strange little moments. I love it.
beautiful.
Which is very filmic.
Yeah, and it's
it
not
almost-
an ending. You know, it doesn't tell
Yeah.
you something's over.
No.
It kind of tells you something's starting.
I should have done.
And then it would have
That's
been
an
the ending.
ending.
You know, for real.
That would have been the thing. James Bond comes walking in, dressed as Charlie Chaplin.
Stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Check my machine.
Come on now.
Check, 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 check. My machine. Check, check, check. My machine. Come on, check, 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 check. My machine.
It's just a groove, you know. So I'm just enjoying the little groove. This is what these kind of records are all about for me.
And it's interesting how certain phrases you can hear over and over again, and it's interesting. And there are other phrases, you hear them 3 times and you never want to hear it
no,
again.
that's
It's
right, yeah.
who knows why? Like,
Yeah. And also, when you make this kind of recording, you're just going to keep going with the check my machine thing
yeah.
to see if it kind of gets anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, in the end, the story of you trying to get somewhere
Yeah.
becomes the vocal.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I thought I was going to just select that bit
Yes.
and that bit, but it's kind of nice.
It develops.
Yeah.
It's like jazz, really. You know, like
Yeah.
repeating an
Phrase.
phrase over and over, and like finding new ways to interpret it. Really interesting.
I could be lead guitar.
Yeah.
Because at home I could play nice little solos.
Yeah.
But I got terrible stage fright at a place in Liverpool called Broadway. Funnily enough, it just came my time to play the solo, and I like froze, you know, and sticky fingers, and nothing would work. And after that, I thought, right, no more lead. That's it. We'll give that to somebody else.
Wow.
But yeah, I did start on guitar, originally acoustic, and then when we went to Hamburg, I bought a little electric guitar, very cheap, that looked good.
Yeah.
Looked kind of rock and roll, a red thing, Rossetti Lucky 7. But it was terrible. But it worked till we got to Hamburg, and then it fell apart. So then I was turning my back on the audience and playing piano. But it was good practice for a bass player. We had Stuart, who was a friend of John's from art school, but he ended up wanting to stay in Hamburg because he fell in love. So then it was a question of me, John, or George becoming the bass player. And the two of them said, well, I'm not doing it. So I was left.
Were you already writing songs at this point, or not really?
Yeah.
Even from the Hamburg days?
Before.
Really?
Yeah. I wrote, my first one was like 14.
Wow.
And that was just a little guitar thing. Do you want me to show you?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go.
I will find a guitar. Yeah, I like the idea that the bass line would go up. Then I wanted this to come down. So you get that little thing. That was the big thing for me.
Yeah.
So it was just, I woke up late this morning. My head was in a whirl. Then I realized I lost my little girl. Her clothes were not expensive. Her hair didn't always curl. But it is interesting. The first song I should write has got a little contrapuntal thing going.
Absolutely.
You know, that going down and
Two
that
parts
going
going on at the same
Yeah.
time right out of the box.
Yeah.
Unusual for a young kid.
Yeah, you know, and it's a funny thing. As you get older, you think, well, how did I know that?
Yes.
And I haven't got an answer. When John and I had got together, and I told him about that little song that I'd written a couple of others, and he said, so have I. And that was the big difference. I talked to other people, and they sort of said, well, what do you do? I said, oh, I've got a hobby. I've written a couple of songs. And most people would just ignore that and go, oh, okay, you know, what sports do you like? And move on. But when I said that to John, he said, yes, so have I. I said, oh, yeah, great. Well, let me see yours. I'll show you mine, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that was it. We started writing together with that in mind, you know. Right.
Do you remember after finishing the song thinking,
It's a good one.
did you feel that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you know that.
Yeah.
Were good songs.
Yeah. Would it be whoever wrote the song would sort of have the
Normally
vision for
would,
the
yeah.
project, for that?
Yeah. And then I'd butt in. And they'd hate me for it. I go, but it's a good idea, boys.
If you had a good idea, it's like, got to get them in.
Yeah.
Got to get them in.
It was kind of an awkward thing, you know, that if you had a good idea for something, you'd say it.
Yeah.
But often the other guy would sort of say, well, you play it.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
So we did that a lot. Like, I think I'd talked to George a lot about the solo on Taxman. And I think that's what happened. He said, well, you play. Funny, because it was like a double-edged sword. People sort of saying, couldn't you just play straighter? You know, and I'm going, I don't know. I think it lends something doing all this. I did get sort of reprimanded once or twice for just being too busy.
Yeah.
But, you know, by that time I'd heard James Jamerson.
We've got to find a way to bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on?
He was great. He had melodic bass lines, and I loved that. Kind of opened my eyes to it. It was like, oh yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You can groove it, make it move, you know. Because originally, the bass player in the groups in Liverpool, it was the fat guy. And he would just stand at the back, and the guitar player, they had all the fancy stuff. But later, when I heard people like James Jamerson, I realized, wow, you can really do a big thing with the bass. You can actually control the band with the bass.
It's interesting, and it's in some ways it's why we're having this conversation, is the fascination with how important the bass is in the context of these songs. And the songs are so ubiquitous in our culture that we don't really think of them in pieces. Do you know what I mean? We just think of them as that song.
That's all,
you know?
yeah. It really happened quite organically in the studio. You know, my famous occasion with bass radically altering the whole attitude of the song was when John came in. Here come on flat top, he got grooving up slowly, he got juju, and all he want, holy roller, he got. I'm saying, wait a minute. That's Chuck Berry's song. This is Chuck Berry's song, which is called You Can't Catch Me, which not only is like that. Here come on flat. The opening line is, here come old flat top.
Here come on flat top, he was moving up with me, then come waving goodbye at a little old souped up jitney. I put my foot in my tank and I began to roll, moaning siren towards the state patrol. So I let out my wings and then I blew my horn. Bye-bye New Jersey, I become airborne. Now you can't.
It actually is the Chuck Berry song.
It actually is the Chuck Berry song. So I said, oh man. I said, you know, look, it's a great song. I love it. I said, but we got to do something to get away from that. Yeah. So I just suggested we slowed it down. So instead of the, we go.
You talked a little bit about becoming a fan of the Beatles again.
Yeah.
So tell me first about Beatles breakup. In that moment, what's your feeling about your last 10 years of music?
I knew we'd done something great.
Yes.
We'd had a lot of fun in the studio, and I was sad to see it break up.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be in this band forever. But various things were happening. There was a lot of heavy business stuff that had influenced decisions. So we split up, and I was heartbroken, really. And I kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. I went up to a farm in Scotland and just became a sort of hippie farmer, which was great.
Motor cars, handlebars, bicycles for two, broken-hearted Jubilee.
When you've been a musician all that time, the idea of just not doing it was a bit sad. I just wanted to keep going with music.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very difficult thing to shake off if you're this invested like you and I are.
Yeah.
You just can't sort of say, oh, I won't do it tomorrow.
You can't imagine it.
So I just went right back to basics. And it wasn't easy.
Never finished the lyrics.
No, this is jazz. I had some recording equipment at home. I had an amp, guitar, piano, a little drum set. So I just thought, well, I'll just record some stuff, you know.
And literally yourself, meaning not even an engineer. Nobody was there except you.
Nobody.
This was the first album that you made in this way, everything at home, all by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, once you do something like this, it's a nice little home project.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you've built a table, you got some time off, I'll build a chair or something. You know, it's just that good feeling you're doing something for yourself.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you've suddenly got enough tracks for an album.
Maybe I'm afraid of the way I love you. Maybe I'm amazed at the way you pulled me out of time. You hung me on the line. Maybe I'm amazed at the way I really need you. Maybe I'm amazed
once you've been to the top, going back down to the bottom of the ladder and clawing your way back up is it's a bit of a number. But I had Linda by my side, and she'd helped me through that period. She was very great strength.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you help me sing
Bringing the energy.
It's like, right me when I'm wrong.
I wonder if that's tucked in there. I never heard that before.
No,
No, you left it out?
I don't know. It might be just.
Might be.
Sounds like I mixed it out.
That guy.
That's where the audience applauds. You go, wait for it, wait for it.
Baby, I'm amazed the way you love me all the time. Maybe I'm afraid of the way I love you.
I'd seen something that made me think, oh, John's got a new record out, and it's called Lennon. I thought, wow, that's great. Oh boy, I missed that boat.
Yeah.
You know, and it turned out not to be so.
Wow.
So I thought, that's a great idea, though.
Yeah.
You just called it your surname.
Yes.
So I thought, I'll have that. So I just made my first record, McCartney.
And he doesn't really understand. Maybe I'm a man, and maybe you're the only woman who can ever love me. Maybe won't you help me to understand?
You were feeling good that day. When was the moment when it switched from, okay, the old band broke up, there's some bad feelings, business stuff, and now I'm moving on, I'm starting at the bottom myself over again. When could you look back and realize, oh, what we did back then was really good and special?
I think once I got over the fact that the Beatles had broken up, once I could allow myself to do a Beatles song in our show.
Would that have been 5 years or 10 years or?
No, I think it was a few years. I wanted a whole new thing,
Yes.
whole new sound, new songs.
Yeah.
So once we got that,
Yes.
I felt vindicated, and I thought, okay, why do I can now safely put a Beatles song in.
Yes.
And then you started to think, oh, what about that one? And I never would do a John song because I would just only go to songs that I'd instigated.
Yeah.
But after a while, I got so comfortable with it, I thought, yeah, I'll do a John song. I love that song.
I want to read to you one little thing.
Yeah.
It says, Paul is one of the most innovative bass players that ever played bass, and half of the stuff that's going on now is directly ripped off from his Beatle period. He's always been a bit coy about his bass playing, but he's a great, great musician.
Did I write that?
That is John Lennon.
That's John.
Yeah.
All right, come on, Johnny.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I hadn't heard that before.
It's interesting considering, obviously, you're two leaders of something and it's a competitive situation.
Yeah.
So to hear that.
He'd never said that to me.
Yeah.
So, but it's nice to hear that he said it to someone. That's amazing. Tune. I thought, I love this tune. Oh, this must be from my dad's era. Oh, this is like some old tune. So I just started. So I had that, but I couldn't carry the piano with me. So, you know, I transposed it onto guitar. Said to people, first of all, John, said, what's this? You know, he said, I don't know. I said, no, this tune, it must be something. We've heard it. He said, no, I don't know. So I took it to George Martin, our producer, and George has got a wider knowledge of particularly older songs. So I said, what's this? He said, I don't know. Yeah, I said, well, I've called it Yesterday. He said, well, there is a song called Yesterdays. I said, I'm not worried about the title. It's this melody, you know, because I can't have written it. Because there was no conscious effort involved. I just woke up and it was there. So, you know, people later would say to me, you know, do you believe in magic? I said, well, I have to. You know, I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I'm sleeping. Going on, oh, I love this song, I love this. Wake up. Now, the difference is I remembered it.
Yes.
I think a lot of people hear beautiful music in their dreams, but don't necessarily remember
I wonder
it.
if you didn't have a piano there, if you would have been able to remember it.
Yeah.
You know, waking up
Yeah.
and luckily there was a piano.
I was very lucky, yeah.
But in those days, you had to remember a
You
lot
had
of
to,
things
yeah.
because you weren't able to record things so easily
You weren't able to record things.
at all.
There was like no phones to
Yeah.
do it, obviously. The only things were these big Grundig tape recorders with a green eye on the
Which you
front.
wouldn't always have in your pocket.
You wouldn't even have in your home.
Really?
Because, yeah, you had to have a bit of money to have them.
Had to go, I don't know, she wouldn't say. I said,
I'd recorded it just with the guitar and vocal. And I'd said to the guys in the band, I said, well, what are you going to do, you know? And they all said, no, I don't think we need to do anything. You should just do it on your own. So it was like the first time I think I'd ever done like a solo thing. So I just played on guitar. And George Martin said, I think for safety, let's just do one more. And this was the second take that they used. And then we're sitting around listening to it.
to go, I don't know.
And I'm
she
thinking,
wouldn't say.
yeah, you know, sounds nice. And George said he's got this idea to put strings on it. He said, I think it'd be great with a string quartet. I'm going, no. I mean,
And you guys had never used strings before this.
no, and plus we're a rock and roll band. You don't use strings. So George, being very smart, he said, well, let's try it.
Yeah.
And if you hate it, we can take it off. So he did try it.
Love was such an easy game to play. I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe. Yes,
Yeah, so I loved it. I loved the session.
Right away? Like right
Yeah.
away? When you first heard it, was it jarring or good experience?
No,
right
it was great, you know, because it's just me with George up in the control room.
Yeah.
And we go down and we meet the string players, just a little quartet. And I was really excited. Yeah. Because we'd never done anything like that, and it suddenly made it feel whole. George Martin was a huge help in that, in as much as he could write it. You know, normally you've got a song and you have to get an outside arranger in.
Yeah.
And then he sort of goes off into a cupboard somewhere and you don't quite know what it's going to be. But with George, you knew that we read each other well enough. The funny thing was, when we were shown notation, it didn't mean anything to us. Still doesn't really mean anything to me. Even though I'll work with a classical orchestra and do a huge big orchestral piece, I will have to talk it through with them rather than say, the B flat in bar 14, that should be a B, not a B flat. You know, I have to go, no, that note there should be, you know, I know.
Lower
difference
or
between-
higher?
Yeah, lower or higher. But that's how we did it. And my excuse, there is an excuse, because coming from Liverpool, there's a lot of sort of Irish, Celtic influence. And the Celts never wrote anything down. It's the bardic tradition.
Yeah.
So that's our excuse.
Yeah.
Me and John used to say, yeah, it was the bardic tradition.
When you were kids starting to write songs, what would you hear on the radio typically?
In the early days, there wasn't much on radio. There were just one or two cool DJs. But we were listening to records, and there'd be a lot of R&B, things like Ray Charles and Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, Isley Brothers. We'd cover all those.
Kansas City, gonna get my baby one time. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to Kansas City, gonna get my baby one time. Yeah, yeah. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow.
I thought I was Ray Charles in my head.
Were records easy to come by? Was it a popular thing at the time?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to a record shop and you'd go in the booth and you'd listen. The main thing was finance. you didn't have that much money, so you'd have to save up to buy an LP or a concert ticket. We all the bands started off doing covers. When we were in Hamburg and in the Cavern in Liverpool, it was pretty much all covers. So I would do Long Tall Sally by Little Richard. But so did one of the other groups. There's a group called Derry and the Seniors. And Derry, he could do, well, tell her, Mary. He could do that, you know, and so it was like, well, I'll do it better.
Yeah.
Because if you were backstage and you were going to be on after them,
Yeah.
and you suddenly heard, gonna tell her, Mary, you go, you know, I was going to do that.
Yeah.
And you actually didn't have time to change, so you would do that. You'd go on and just hope your version was better. I remember we used to do a 3/4 thing. If you gotta make a fool of somebody, chicka chick chick. If you gotta make a fool of someone, boom boom ba ba dum. The original version was by James Ray.
If you got to make a fool of somebody, if you got to make a fool of someone.
It was a real cool little thing, and I said, we'd never heard this beat. Like a waltz, a rock and roll waltz. So we did this, and I remember a couple of the London bands coming up. Play If You're Gonna Make a Fool of Somebody. Because they'd not heard anything like this.
Where would you have heard it?
On record, George had the album, James Ray album, and later, much later, he got my mind set on you. That was a James Ray off that album.
Wow.
So George remembered that. But we'd have these little oddball songs that we'd put in, because we were playing so many hours.
Yeah.
We didn't want to get bored.
Yeah.
We could not have handled it if at every set we played the same lot of songs. So we started to think, well, you know what? If we wrote stuff, they wouldn't know it. Nobody would be able to access it. It'd be private to us. So that's actually what started. It wasn't a great light bulb went off. It was sheer necessity to have something the other bands couldn't play.
Quite brisk, moderato, foxtrot.
John, whenever you like, the red light's on.
Is it? Oh, of course, I couldn't see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good, isn't it? Yeah. So that's the thing, you can hear the excitement of us just making stuff up.
For sure.
Can't you?
For sure.
It's just like, yeah, well, let's do that. Oh, okay.
It sounds thrilling. And I think what it is you guys were excited making it, and we get to feel your excitement.
Yeah.
It's a human feeling that's in that performance.
Yeah.
Clearly, these guys are going for it.
Really, yeah.
And you feel it.
Because it all had to be done so quickly.
Yeah, it's contagious. You know, like the energy is contagious.
Yeah.
So to me, it has a Celtic flavor. I don't know why that is.
Well, you know, I mean, we're Liverpool boys, and they say Liverpool's the capital of Ireland. So it's likely that there's all those influences, you know. But we would just make up the solo, in this case, and just learn the harmony and the solo, and then play the two live.
So, but technically, this isn't what you think of as the song. This was a musical choice you made in the studio.
Yeah.
The song would have been more. Was there ever a time where you guys would sing unison as opposed to harmony?
Yeah, always. On the early records, that was the thing, because we'd written the song together.
Yeah.
And we'd sing it together. Just kind of remember it and just sing it. And George Martin would say, who's lead singer? We said, well, me and John.
Yeah.
So it was like early double tracking.
Yeah.
And also, it might just have been that both of us wanted to do the vocal.
Yeah.
So there's only one answer to that.
Yeah.
Both do it.
Yeah. Would you sit down to write a song, or does it just happen?
With John and I, we sit down.
And you would know, I'm coming over tomorrow at noon, we're going to meet at this time, and let's write.
And we'll just write something.
Did you take turns, like John would do a song, then you would do a song, and back and forth? That's how it would work?
Yeah, often, yeah. It would be his song, my song, his song, my song.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this a lot, but as a Beatles fan now, it is astounding to me that I think, all in all, I think John and I wrote just short of 300 songs, and every session we finished a song. You'd think that there'd be at least 10 where we just couldn't get it. But there's something about the work ethic or just the knowing each other so well that we could spare each other on, and we just didn't like to leave it. Oh, we haven't done it, we haven't finished it. So we would go till we finished stuff. And we did, we pretty much did.
It's amazing.
It was great, you know, I look back, and at the time I was just working with this bloke called John.
Yeah.
Now I look back and I was working with John Lennon. I knew this was like a big song from the minute John brought it in and we started working on it. So, I mean, that, it was like, I'd been, by that time, this is quite late in the Beatles thing, and I'd been listening to like a lot of avant-garde music. I was in London, I was hanging out, and we were getting quite artsy and going to a lot of arts exhibitions. And I was, reading about crazy composers like John Cage. Yeah. The concepts were like, wow, very freeing.
John Cage and Water Walk.
I don't want to do that, but I love the idea that he did it. I said to George Martin, George, we need a symphony orchestra. And George originally said, we don't need that many. He said, it's a full symphony orchestra, it's like over 40 people or something. I said, yeah, this song, we want it. So then the original thing that I'd put down was, from a certain point, all the musicians were allowed to break free. And now these are session musicians. They're not used to doing this kind of stuff. And it kind of frightens them a bit. So I sort of said, okay, here's the instruction. Is each instrument, you start on your lowest note and you're going to reach your highest note, but you go at your own speed. So if you want, you can go and you're done. Yeah. Or you can go do, 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 and you just play with it. The strings wouldn't really move without each other. They all went do, do, do,
the first guy.
Whereas the brass, the trumpets, you'll notice they're a bit more free. They're a bit more the lads.
Yeah, they tend to have that personality in real
their
life.
Their personality showed.
Let's listen to the.
It was very exciting doing that piece of
Beautiful.
Orchestra, though, yeah.
Listening to the vocal and the guitar, it's a very laid back, dreamy energy. Yeah. And then the bass comes in, and it's.
And the drums.
And the drums.
Yeah.
But it's driving in an entirely different direction than the song might suggest.
Yeah. It's great that I felt that freedom.
No, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
The band was a very free band. Yeah. And we would allow each other pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Unless it was like really stunk and it was like, oh no, forget it. And then we'd all gang up on whoever that was and stop it.
Found the way downstairs and drank a cup. And looking up,
this is my childhood experiences.
Found my coat and grabbed my hat.
Going to school, seconds flat. I used to go to school on the bus.
Found my way upstairs and
had a smoke and maybe I didn't have a smoke on the way to school, but for the purposes of the song, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Poetic license.
Yep.
Did you write this piece to go with what John brought in, or did you already have
No,
this?
I already had the little middle thing, yeah.
Is this the first time you guys put two songs together?
Could be.
It makes it new music. If you just started with what would ordinarily accompany that kind of song,
Yeah.
it would be a ballady, a folky ballad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But to hear it come in this other direction, unexpected,
Yeah.
it feels like we've never heard music like this before by anybody. You know, that's the thing about it. It's like it takes a traditionally written song and turns it into essentially avant-garde music, even using traditional instruments.
Yeah. Normally, you know, if it sort of worked like that, you could get away with a lot of free playing.
Who's playing piano, do you know?
That's got to be me.
It does sound avant-garde as well. Wow.
And then this piano end, I'd realized, I'd noticed that with a piano, how long, if you hold down a loud pedal on a piano, how long the chord lasts. And I'd just do it like a party piece with friends.
Yeah.
I'd say, listen to this. I brought the idea in, hey man, it goes on forever. We should do this at the end of a song. Let's just have it go on. And of course, George Martin, being a clever producer, magnified the idea, and he took the raw thing that I'd showed him. George then added another chord on top of it, maybe. But it goes on forever.
A really long time. And it's, if you listen, it almost sounds like it changes.
Yeah, you start to hear little harmonics in
Yeah.
it and things, yeah. You know, there's the magic again.